From the military to medicine to ministry. Now find out the role he's playing with the March of Dimes. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People.
Better Blue natural spring water from the Blue Ridge Mountains. Better Blue is better for you.
Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the March of Dimes and its focus on premature birth. And we're visiting with Dr. Covia Stanley, the District Health Director for the Waccamaw Public Health District. Good morning, Dr. Stanley.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in this morning and taking the time to think about what so many are thinking about. Really making an effort to find a solution to premature births.
Yes. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Real quick about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
Well, I'm about 43 miles from here. I grew up in Brunswick County. And a little, I call it a rural county, a town called Longwood, North Carolina, which is just west of Highway 17, 904 that goes into Ocean Isle Beach. On the other side of 17 is where my home is.
You still have family in Brunswick County?
I do, yes.
So a Tar Heel native that now calls the Palmetto State home.
That's true, yes.
How long have you been in this area?
I came down in January of '98.
Okay.
I have had a circuitous residency. I went to college in Durham, North Carolina Central University, and I joined the Air Force, and I traveled the world and came back and went to medical school in the University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York.
Is that right?
And I did my OBGYN residency in Wilmington under the University of North Carolina School of Medicine program, and went into private practice in Whiteville, North Carolina, just up the road, 5 years, and I accepted the call in the gospel ministry, gave up private practice of medicine, moved to Richmond, Virginia, went to seminary at Virginia Union University, and while there, that's how I got involved in public health, working with the Virginia Department of Health and the Medical College of Virginia. So through all that, I was there for 10.5 years, and then I got a call in November of '97 that there was a position open down here. So I said, I'll go back home.
in public health?
Yes.
In public health.
Yes.
And obviously this position now is the District Health Director.
Yes.
The Waccamaw Public Health District, I think you said earlier, is 3 counties.
Yes, 3 counties, O'Reed, Georgetown, and Williamsburg counties. Effective July 1st, it will no longer be called Waccamaw Public Health District. It will be called Region 6.
Okay, Region 6.
Yes, we have undergone some changes in name. And there were 12 different districts throughout the state, and over the past few years there have been some mergers, so we've just reduced it down to 8 regions now.
So Region 6 will be how many counties then?
Just 3.
Still just the 3. Yes. Of course, you know the bulk of our viewers are in the PD and southeastern North Carolina, as you saw on our coverage map. Heck of a lot of folks from your area, and of course you having grown up in Brunswick County, but having practiced there in Columbus County, you've covered quite a bit of the areas, I mean the 2 counties immediately adjacent to this one, so this must be an area you've gotten to know very well.
Very well, yes. Yeah, it's interesting when I came back and I go to different churches, I find babies that I delivered when I was in Whiteville.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Now, had you spent 4 years there at Central?
Yes, I did.
Before going into the Air Force, you said?
Yeah, I went to pre-med there in North Carolina Central.
Well, that's
then went into the Air Force.
Yeah, that's a great school, and the Triangle area is great.
It is.
It is a great area. How long were you in the Air Force?
4 years. Well, I was 4 years as an enlisted man because that was during the Vietnam War time from 68 to 72. And of course, when I moved to Richmond in '87, I became a member of the Air Force Reserves.
Is that right?
And I was with the reserves until I moved back down here in '98. So I did go back. My base was at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. That's where I did active duty, and I reached the rank of lieutenant colonel and decided it was just too much to go back and forth from here to
Langley.
Langley. And of course, I tried down here at Charleston, but they did not have a need for an obstetrician gynecologist here at North Shaw Air Force Base. So I decided to start making some adjustments, and then I had back surgery in March of 2001. So I knew that I did not need to aggravate that again.
I'm sure, that's right. You'll be happy to know, Dr. Stanley, that on Tuesday, earlier this week, we had a recent Lieutenant Colonel that retired from U.S. Air Force Reserves, Dick Foltz, who's Richard Foltz, who's an attorney in Myrtle Beach, a real estate attorney. But hearing him talk about the U.S. Air Force Reserves, fascinating, the experiences.
Enjoyed it, yes.
I'm sure that was fascinating. And of course, as you say, being an active practitioner, an OBGYN, whether as a civilian or in the military, is virtually the same. And on the attorney side, obviously, the practice of law can be considerably different.
Well,
you're delivering babies the same way, whether he's a civilian or military.
Well, there certainly was more pleasure delivering babies in the Air Force because I had malpractice coverage and didn't worry about like in civilian life.
That's a good point.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that. Now, that is a real serious thing that a lot of folks don't think about.
Well, they don't think about it. And, of course, in the Air Force, you have the nurses and you staff there, so you don't have to worry about the overhead that you do in civilian practice.
What are some of the other aspects? Of course, for civilian practice, so many folks give up the OB side now.
Yes.
So many doctors are forced to because of the malpractice insurance and just go into the GYN, into the gynecology.
Right. Yes, that's true. And I did that myself. I gave up obstetrics in June of 1986 and just did gynecology from June 1986 until July 1987, and it was like noonday to midnight. In other words, it was nice because you could schedule your cases and you did not have to go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah, you weren't on call all the time.
Being in solo practice, you know, you're there at the hospital all the time. You didn't get a chance to spend time with your family.
Golly.
Although I enjoyed what I was doing, but it did have its toll on not getting able to sleep and get the rest.
Right. And speaking of family, I think I saw you have 2 sons.
Yeah, I do, yes.
And so, of course, they were, I mean, that was a critical time where you needed and wanted to be home, but obviously, you know, when a woman's body decides it's time.
That's true. That's true. And it's interesting, my wife is from Durham, and it seemed like every holiday I would always have somebody coming in that has severe preeclampsia, in other words, elevated blood pressure, swelling of the feet, and all these other problems. And being an obstetrician that you're concerned about being sued, you're behooved to be there at the hospital. Right. You know, you can't just tell the nurse, give her some vinegar and things like that. You got to be right there.
Sure.
In case something happens. And it got so that you had to practice medicine defensively. Every time you saw a patient, you imagine 12 folks around them. That's the potential. Yes.
That's incredible. Of course, the mention of your wife being from Durham, was that because you saw that I'm from Durham? Or was that because Christmas celebrations were up in Durham and you couldn't get away? Yeah.
Well, certainly being from Durham, of course, her mother and father were alive then. And
right.
I knew that I could not be with them during the holiday. As I said, it was almost a given that I'm going to be in the hospital for the Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner and all that. So you might as well go and spend time with your parents and family. And my sons enjoyed being with their cousins and all that.
And grandparents in Durham.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was a sacrifice.
Now, did you meet your wife while you were in Durham, while you were at Central? Or,
yes, I did. Yes. I was a senior. She was a sophomore.
Is that right?
Yes. And of course, there's some other things I can't tell you about on television.
I'm sure.
But actually, we met in May 1964. I was in Washington, my senior class. I graduated from Union High School in Charlotte.
Right.
And we had our senior class trip, and there was this band from Hillside High, and they were in the Cherry Blossom Festival, and we stayed at the Mayflower Hotel.
Wow.
And on that Saturday morning, we came down to the lobby, and I don't remember that well, but my wife told me after we met and dated a few times, now you're coming back to me. It's something that's interesting. And she was telling about you, said you were the class president, and you wished us well in the Cherry Blossom Parade. And I said, well, that's interesting. So it was ordained that we would meet again.
Yes, that's right. So you were up there from Brunswick County, she from Durham, both
Yes.
at the Mayflower Hotel.
Right.
And of course then to met a few years later.
Yeah, I had not thought about her or anything like that. And then in October of 1967, she was one of my students. I was lab instructor in molecular biology. And she needed to have her frog pith, in other words, sticking a pin in the brain of the frog, and I gladly accommodated her.
Oh, yeah, I bet you did.
And at the end of the class, she helped me wash the glassware. I walked her home, and
The
we were
rest
together
is
for
history.
35 years.
That is exciting, Dr. Stanley. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was, of course, probably thrilled to have gotten you back from Virginia down to the Carolinas,
Yes,
and now to
yes.
be, of course, in Conway. She's a 3.25 hour drive to. Are y'all living in Conway?
Yes, we live in Conway.
3.25 hour drive to family still up in the Durham area. And of
Yeah,
course,
well,
now-
both of her parents are deceased now.
Okay, right.
Yeah, but still she has nieces and nephews
Sure.
up there. Yeah.
Are your sons here in the area?
No, the older son is in Richmond, Virginia, and the younger one is in Lexington Park, Maryland.
Mm-hmm. So they stayed up in that area
Yes,
a little
yes.
bit.
Mhm.
Now, what prompted you to give up the practice and go into the ministry? Obviously, a calling,
It's
but
the call, and
yeah.
people don't understand it. You have to walk in our shoes to understand that. I worked until I guess you almost burned out, and I had to be hospitalized because I was threatening a stroke and a heart attack and all that. So while I was convalescing, I was out in the hospital about a week, and then I went home and in Whiteville and stayed there about a week, and then I went to Longwood to my parents and spent a week there to get it all together. And while I'm going through this, I'm recalling something that actually happened to me in May of 1964. The call came in '64, but I was running. You probably hear folks talking about running. I said, no, I got to travel. I got to see the world, have a
do
good
my own
time.
thing,
You know,
sure.
That's not for me. I got to be a doctor.
Right.
And I've been blessed to have a good tour in the Air Force. I spent 2 years at San Antonio, Texas, Wilford Hall Air Force Hospital, largest hospital in the Air Force. Then 2 years in Itazuka, Japan. And so very good tour of duty where we were on a tri-service base. We had Army, Air Force, and Navy.
Is that
And,
right?
The Air Force was in charge of the medical services. And so we had great camaraderie, esprit de corps, on the beach, Hakata Beach. So it was a great tour.
That must have been very exciting. And you
It
think
was.
about those early parts. I mean, you're in your early 20s at that point.
Yes.
Now, did you all go ahead and get married prior to you heading off, or did your wife finish up and then meet up with you?
We got married about a year after I joined the Air Force, and she
Okay.
joined me in Texas and in
San
Japan.
Antonio,
Yeah.
and then in Japan.
Yeah.
How exciting to have been with now your bride there in Japan, and with all the other folks, and the camaraderie of 3 services getting together.
Yes.
It's been fascinating.
Yes.
You know, of course, our real focus is on prematurity.
Right.
And of course, when we think about, I think as we were talking earlier, the critical question that a lot of researchers are still focused on, and that I'm sure everyone in the world wants to know, is how does a woman's body decide that it's now time to birth? Because, you know, when you think about folks could have their first child totally normal, totally at 38, 40 weeks, and then the next one 11 weeks early.
Yes. Well, I don't think it's necessarily the woman's body itself. I think it's other forces or factors that might contribute to that, because we know many times women who have a history of what we call incompetent cervix. In other words, the mouth of the womb is not as strong as it should be, and as the fetus grows in the uterus and it gets to about 18, 19 week size, and the uterus starts pulling the cervix apart as it grows. And in that case, we as obstetricians do recognize that we need to examine the woman's cervix and see if it's dilated, and there are procedures we call a cerclage procedure, where we can put a little clip the mouth of the woman, keep it closed. Now, this is in cases, say, a woman who's had a previous preterm birth. Now, we don't do that on first-timers. And, of course, we find now that there are different bacteria and germ that might bring about the precipitation of labor. We have what we call bacterial vaginosis, where the germ might get in the cervix and the uterus and irritate that. And, of course, in many cases, with the teens, their bodies are just not developed well enough in order to hold that fetus, although, as I was telling the folks this morning, we have many young ladies that look mature, 18, 19 years old, but their body, their pelvis just is not developed that well.
It's a critical factor. Of course, whether it's the prematurity aspects, prematurity can have, I mean, when babies are born prematurely, what are some of the factors that, I mean, what are some of the issues that a baby's faced with, born, let's say, 8 to 10 weeks prematurely? What is a mother and a family going through with that child, or what are y'all what are obstetricians going through and the folks in the delivery room?
Well, certainly when well, it's really very challenging when we have somebody that's, say, 10 weeks or more premature, because we have to think in terms of the maturation of the lungs. Have the lungs matured enough? And we start giving surfactant, and of course, there are steroids that can be used to help accelerate the maturation of the baby's lungs. And of course, sometimes, say, a woman who developed premature contractions because of infections such as a urinary tract infection, the fever and the dehydration in itself might bring about contractile action in the uterine muscles. And with antibiotic therapy and hydration and bed rest, that might help to slow it down some. So all these factors we try to do before we get into the surfactant and dexamethasone, betamethasone. Yeah.
I saw a figure that was incredible when we think about the disparity between African American babies that are born prematurely and other babies that are born prematurely. Those numbers are substantial.
But that is the enigma. We don't know why. As we talked earlier, African American woman and her counterpart, white woman, could have the same stage of gestation, go through the same modalities of therapy, whether it's hydration or steroids or whatever, but there's something that just seems to make that uterus contract more and make premature delivery. And this is where the research would really help us.
This is where the dollar's raised, and on the 30th,
yes,
the Horry County Walk America,
yes,
or the other events, the chef's auction, or the multiple events, the real estate breakfast, every event that occurs,
yes,
all the fundraisers for the March of Dimes are people just sending in donations on their own. Those funds are being used to research why.
Yes, that's true. And certainly we want to be more involved in education, being more proactive and preventative, and certainly we in obstetrics and public health want to emphasize better preconceptual health. In other words, we want the young ladies to begin eating nutritiously, we say fruits and vegetables, exercising regularly, engage in athletics, sports, after-school activities, arts, computer, whatever, and do well in school, and hopefully it'll buy time so that they will mature physically as well as emotionally, so that by the time they reach 18, hopefully their bodies will be better prepared to carry a baby.
Right. That is so
and
critical.
Avoid smoking, avoid drugs, alcohol, and have a good relationship with their male partner. We found that some prematurity also can result from intimate partner violence. You know, the partner hits the woman in the stomach, kick him in the stomach or something like that.
Oh, Lord, yes. The discussions, of course, the doors that have been opened for you as the district health director for the Waccamaw district, soon to be for the Region 6.
Yes.
The opportunities that have been afforded you to meet with these folks and hear some of those issues has probably been incredibly meaningful.
It has. And of course, as I was telling Renee, I've been involved with March of Dimes since 1983. When I was in private practice in Whiteville, North Carolina, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, and I was the president of the chapter in Wilmington. But knowing that we had to work with young men, it's a collaboration with the March of Dimes called Project Alpha, where we talk to young men between ages of 12 and 16, letting them know that they are 50% of the problem with teen pregnancy. Therefore, we would have the dads or the significant other male with them in the sessions that we have, and we would talk about self-respect, respect for others, and certainly respect for young ladies, positive self-esteem, setting goals for doing well academically, and having a career in mind, so that they can work toward that while they're going through school, be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, or computer scientist, or just be a policeman or fireman, whatever. We try to inculcate within their mind something that they know they're going to have to do academic success, and to get to that so that they can take care of a family. Most especially when the woman becomes pregnant, they can provide a good income. So we start during that time, and the fathers and the significant other males that are with them, kind of mentor them, and we follow up with them. And also we talked about sexually transmitted diseases.
Sure.
We talked about economics, how you get out there and start working at McDonald's or Burger King, because the tobacco fields were going away during that time. So they had to be gainfully employed and learn about the fact that they can go to the banker and open an account and things like that, to give them some ideas of how to be business-like.
And critical information, it's so important for them to think about that prior to conception, as you say, because so oftentimes if they're not involved during the pregnancy, to try to come in later, they feel like, I'm not really a part of this. Or, they come in at age 1 or age 2. And we had a guest in who's over the Fatherhood Project for South Carolina, a gentleman who used to live in Conway, is now commuting to Columbia. It was fascinating. Michael Burgess was with us a couple of weeks ago, and to hear Michael talk about the experience for so many young men, because they just feel, they've never had their children to their own homes. They only visit the home, and of course they have to deal with the mother and the grandmother. And there's so many issues there for fathers.
Yes. And I think it's by divine providence that I'm able to combine medicine and ministry, because I feel like there should be the family concept initially. So these young men working with the dads and the significant other males in their life, they will have some positive direction. And certainly we instill into them the fact that when a girl says no, she means no. Although in the last few years I've heard some guys at Dr. Stanley, we have to say no now. It seems like things are changing. But we still try, and of course, as I said, I did that in Whiteville, and Wilmington while I was here in North Carolina. And then when I moved to Richmond, I worked very closely. As a matter of fact, I coordinated the Project Alpha projects while I was up in Richmond during that time. And when I came down here last February of 2004, we had a great program at Conway Middle School, and we hope to do it again in the near future. We want to go to the Atlantic Beach area.
Obviously, as the district health director, it can be difficult at times to bring the Lord in, because this is a state role. I mean, it could be, but obviously your role as a minister is a full-time position. So that has to flow through you. How do you bring the Lord into?
Well, it's interesting. As I said, I'm thinking about Providence, because while I was in Richmond, I was involved with the American Public Health Association, and at our national convention in New York City in 1996, I became involved in the Health Faith Caucus. And then when I moved down here, I became involved in the Health Faith Workshop with Turning Point program here in South Carolina. And so all of it came together. So we recognized the church has a great role in helping to shape and mold the lives of these young people, and not being judgmental. We need to give messages of recovery, messages of second chance, and there has to be a ministry of presence. Many of these young people just need people to sit down and spend quality time with them, looking them eye to eye as you and I are doing it, being at their level. They have so many distractions and issues that we never knew as we were coming up. And so when they have a sense of positive self-esteem and that they have somebody they can confide in and trust, I think they will do better.
Absolutely.
And with respect to their deportment, their schooling, and hopefully will become gainfully employed.
There's so many other things I'd love to cover with you, Dr. Stanley. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. 6 minutes have blown by, but we'll have to get you back, please, if you'd be willing to come back with us sometime.
Okay.
Thanks so much for your time this morning. Absolutely.
Okay.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Dr. Covia Stanley coming up next. Dr. Stanley joined the Horry County Board of Directors in January of this year, and a big push for him is for over this 3-year term is to focus on prematurity. It's a focus of so many folks in the area, and the recognition of prematurity impacting so many, not just the child, not just the mother, not just the family, but all the extended family. It impacts everyone. We have to find a cure. The March of Dimes extended a 5-year campaign to 2010. They're making a lot of headway. They're seeing it. It's much like the early stages of the March of Dimes, which set the stage for Jonas Salk to do just what he did. You can imagine their early dreams were, we can find a cure to polio. Right now, the dreams of volunteers like Covia and so many of the other volunteers throughout the area are, let's find a cure to prematurity. Much like the efforts of Project Alpha and others to reach out early. Reach out to folks, get in there. We're reaching out to you. The March of Dimes and all the volunteers want you to know you can make a difference. They started with dimes. They've moved to dollars. They can do it in whatever way you can do it. Give them a call at 843-488-3463 to find out how you can be a part of the walk in your community, whether it's the Horry County Walk on April 30th or another walk. They know when it's coming up, and they know you can be a part of it. Give them a call.